Hello YouTubers, this is Soren again, and today I'll be showing you how to install a VirtualBox virtual machine LAMP server. Now what a LAMP server is basically a general purpose server that you can use for web applications, web server, database server. Pretty much those two alone are going to enable you to do a lot of things, whether you want to do just plain web pages, an Apache server for streaming your own music if you want, also as an Opencloud server if you want to host your own files from the web. There's many uses for it. Now what the LAMP server stands for is the L stands for Linux, the A for Apache, the M for MySQL, and P for PHP. Now there's also a Windows variant of this called WAMP, the W being the Windows part. Now that's a separate program you can just download. For Windows it's pretty easy. Just download the program. Of course you still have to configure it, just like here after this tutorial. I'm not going to show you how to configure it, just install it so it's working in a bare minimum state. It's at that point if you want to go ahead and secure it and configure it even further. Now let's get started. First we're just going to bring up VirtualBox. Now if you don't know what VirtualBox is, I already have another tutorial for it. In this case we're just going to create our first virtual machine. We're just going to go ahead and just give it a bare name, LAMP in this case. We're going to be using Linux. And I've already downloaded the Ubuntu server ISO, so I'm just going to be using the 64-bit version. We're just going to take all of the defaults for right now. Okay, now we can go into settings, and we're just going to customize it a bit. In this case we're just taking off a floppy drive. I don't know who still uses that. The order that you put this boot order in determines what you're going to be booting off of. In this case we're going to go ahead and put the hard disk first for more performance reasons, as it were. But generally if you want it for an easy install, we're just going to go ahead and put the DVD on top. The reason I'm moving it down is to show you under VirtualBox how to select an alternate boot order. I'm going to go ahead and give it access to PAE and single processors enough for this demonstration. Make sure everything's selected there, if you're assuming your processor supports it. And again, we're not really doing anything here. I don't really like IDE controllers. It's more of a compatibility thing. It shouldn't be a problem with the newer servers, so I'm just going to take that off. The secondary controllers are already hit there, along with the hard drive image. In this case, we're just going to add a DVD, CD, or Blu-ray reader if you want. We're just going to leave that empty. We're going to select it and click on this little disk icon, and we're going to choose virtual disk, which is the ISO you would have downloaded or set up. But if you want to use your physical DVD or CD-ROM drive, you just select one of these ones for host drive. In this case I've preloaded it, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now since we're using a GUI-less server, there's no point in really having audio, so we're taking that off. That's fine. We do want it in NAT, but if you wanted to have a presence on your network, as it were, you would use bridged adapter. We don't really need serial or USB ports, and that's just telling you that if it's using any kind of USB devices, it's probably not going to work. Now this is more of an advanced area. If you want to share files with your host system, in this case Windows, with your virtual machine, you would add them here. But we're not going to get into that for right now, so we're just going to go ahead and click on OK. We're going to click on Start. The first screen that's going to come up is like the generic boot screen for VirtualBox, and it tells you how to do an alternate boot. In this case, it's going to tell you to select F12. Press F12, where type in C for CD-ROM, in which case it's loading the CD-ROM image that we downloaded earlier. Again, you can also use the physical CD-ROM if you burned one. You can go ahead and do other things. Now under other options here, I see they changed things, because they used to have an option there for selecting bare virtual minimum for virtual machine, and that's not there anymore, so we're just going to go ahead and select the install Ubuntu server. Now of course you can use any Linux distribution you want. I'm going to go ahead and select English and United States. We're just going to take the defaults here. You can use CentOS, Slackware. You can use any OS you want. OpenBSD. Of course, you can use Windows if you want. I'm just using Ubuntu server here because it's the easiest way to do it. Just to do a bare install. Like I said, after the install here, it's up to you if you want to update your server, if you want to configure each one of the components. You're also free to install the components individually if you want. That's definitely much harder than what I'm showing you here, but it also gives you much more control, much more things to do to configure here. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and give it a just the generic name. Now you can put in anything you want here. I'm just going to go ahead and put in my my name, and automatically puts that in for me. Otherwise, if I put in my real name and press enter, it would put in one part of my real name here, and you would have to choose an alternate name anyway. So I just kind of skipped a step. I just used my generic name. Now asking for your password twice, and generally no. The only reason we're doing that for is just for the sake of the demo. Yes, that is my time zone. Now again, for easy installation, we're just going to use guided entire disk. You can use manual if you want to control each individual partition or mount point. Again, we're just using the easy thing, so you go ahead and use guided. Select the one that's selected, and write changes to disk. Now if you notice, if you're running this on a real machine, it actually runs a little faster on a virtual machine. Why? I'm not really sure. Maybe it's because they're both running off the same hard drive or something. Now again, I was just saying, it's up to you if you want to configure it so it boots more efficiently, control access to your server, or individual components of the server. Here I'm just showing you how to install it as a virtual machine. So it only runs on your machine, and you control access to that machine, to the virtual machine, as it were, through your machine. Now I'll show you how to forward the ports on a virtual machine to the virtual machine after the installation is done. I'm not really behind a proxy, so I'm just going to take that off, or leave it blank rather. In a moment here, it's going to pop up with the install types. I don't know if in the meantime if it's going to let me set up the ports here. Under settings, under network. I mean, there's no harm setting them up now. It looks like it will. I just don't know about how it's going to do it. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and add a new rule. In this case, we're going to just type in any name you want. I'm just going to type in TCP because generally for web servers you only need the TCP protocol. In this case, we do want automatic updates. And instead of typing in your real IP address, let's go and go back to this virtual machine here. It's up to you if you want to install an OpenSSH server, so that way you can access this virtual machine from your from outside of your host machine anywhere you want. I don't really see a need for that, since if you have access to the physical machine that it actually runs on, there's no real point. But again, that's more of a choice thing. If you want to manage multiple virtual servers from a single machine outside where you don't have physical access to that, that's up to you. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and select LAMP server, because that makes it very easy to go ahead and do the install. We're just going to go ahead and tab over to continue. And it's asking for the password for the MySQL root user. Okay. Now under the configuration here, you don't want to put in your actual IP address. You want to put in 127.0.0.1. So that way, anything you type in, if you type in your real machine IP address or your local host address, which is what this is, it'll always resolve to the same thing. So no matter what your IP changes to, it'll still work. In this case, because if you were running on a Linux host, you can't actually forward any ports below 1024. So I'm not so sure about Windows hosts. I haven't really tried it, and I'm not really used to that either. So we're just going to go ahead and go with the default. So we're just going to go and type in 8080, and this will go to the guest IP. Now that I don't know in advance. That's whatever VirtualBox assigns to here. Generally, it's going to be like a 10.0.2 something. We're just going to leave that alone for right now, just so we can get most of the rules built up. We'll fill this in, the guest IP address in here when we find out about it. In this case, we're going to go ahead into guest port 80. That's because it's we're forwarding port requests for any kind of like web traffic to a web server, as it were, on our machine to the virtual machine, using port 8080 to the guest machine here, which is this one, on port 80 on this thing. So it's basically port 8080 on this machine to port 80 on that one. Now you can configure your web server to use any port you want. 80 is just the default, which is when you type in HTTP something and like www.youtube.com, it goes to port 80 by default. If you go HTTPS, it's actually port 443 by default. In the meantime, let's go ahead and type in that one. 443.127.0.0.1. We're going to go and, again, on the host you can't forward anything below 1024, so we're just going to go ahead and double that up. And that will forward to port 443 on this machine. Now, based on what I see here, it looks like it's almost done. Now, if you wanted to forward MySQL traffic, this is what you type in. You will actually need both of them. In this case, we're going to go and select yes. It's going to reboot here shortly. If you want to do OpenSSH, you also could do the forwarding for here for it. Now, before I go and reboot, let me go and finish this part. MySQL TCP, again 127.0.0.1. Now MySQL uses port 3306 by default, so you can go ahead and put that in because it's above port 1024, so you shouldn't have any issues that way with that. Also put in the same port because you're forwarding requests to the virtual machine 3306 from the host machine 3306. Now MySQL also uses UDP, so we're just typing in the same information. We're just changing this to UDP. And click on OK. This will take effect after the machine reboots here, which we're going to have to shut it down and reboot it one more time when we figure out what the IP address is. Now, on a physical machine, what happens is after the installation process, it'll pop out the CD-ROM drive. Here, since we already selected the boot from the hard drive as the first thing, it's going to do that first. Sorry about that. I don't need personal messages to show up on on YouTube here. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and log into the server. And we're just going to go ahead and do a quick check to see if anything what we're looking for is running. In this case, you see a user here called MySQL. That means the MySQL server itself is running. All these www data ones are the Apache user running the Apache server, as you can see here. The one that says root and Apache over here is the one that's actually running it, but they're just it's kind of like a manager. It's not actually running it. These ones are, so it's kind of a security thing. In any case, we just need the IP address here, so we're just going to do an fconfig, and in this case it's 10.0.2.15. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down. In the meantime, just to show you it's not working yet, we go ahead and type in 127.0.0.1, and we're put in the colon to indicate what port we're going to use. In this case, port 8080, because we forwarded that port. According to that, it is working already. I don't remember putting in the last IP address. It's probably because it interprets it as anything on that IP range, I guess. But the proper way to do it is to go back into here under network, port forwarding, and put in the final part of that IP address. The reason for that being is so that if you have other virtual servers running, it only forwards the request to this specific server, not every single thing on this virtual network, as it were. Okay, so now everything is set up correctly. Now we can go ahead and do a reboot. Now just to show you, since it's rebooting, it shouldn't take you anywhere. At least until this thing fully reboots anyway. So you can see it's taking a while. It should refresh here in a second. Okay, you don't have the message anymore over there. After I did this, it's because it is working. As you can see, this is running on a real web server. Now, how do you upload content to the server? That's up to you. You can install FTP. You can, as I showed you earlier, under VirtualBox here, if you go under Settings, under Shared Folders, you can share the host machine, a folder on the host machine with the virtual one here. But to do that, so that it works, you will have to install the Guest Edition CD. I'm not going to show you how to do that right away. That will allow you to share the folder on the host to the virtual, so you're making more efficient use of the hard drive space on the host machine. Okay, now as you can see, it is now working through a NAT, so that way you control access to who has access to the server. They're not accessing the server through any other port other than what you specify. Now if you type in this without the 8080 just by itself, it'll probably not go anywhere. As you can see, it doesn't do anything. You need the colon 8080. If you just type in colon 80, it shouldn't work either. See? You will need 8080 because that's the host port that we specified to forward request on this port to port 80 on the virtual machine. That is the only way they can access it this way. Now if you wanted to go ahead and do an update on the server, you would type in update. Now since this is a brand new installation, I do suggest you do this. You type in the and symbol, so that way it double ampersands, so allow you to run two commands. If the first command is successful, it allows you to run the second command afterwards, or multiple commands after that. So if you can do triple ones if you want. So if you want to go ahead and do upgrade, I believe. If that's successful, you can also do it again to distribution upgrade. But this is all you really need to get it upgraded to a minimum level. I do suggest you do that just to get it in a basic updated state. Never mind securing the server. If you wanted to go ahead and edit the configuration files, again, as you can see here, under www data, there's multiple things here. If you wanted to go to the etc Apache 2 directory, there is a file called apache2.conf. that you can edit. And what you're looking for here is probably not in this file. Okay, my bad. You probably want to go to conf enabled. If not, mods enabled. Nope. Okay, these are symbolic links, but it's as good as what we're looking for. We're going to go and edit the npm prefork. Conf, not the load. And where it says start servers here, that's the amount that's starting up. Usually for home systems, you don't want to start up 5 servers because you're not expecting that much traffic. It's more of a home thing. If you're expecting larger servers, you can increase that to more to start more servers up if you want to handle more requests. But you will have to adjust the amount of memory that's on the virtual machine to compensate for that. Okay, now that should be it for this tutorial. Hopefully this has helped you out with the basic LAMP server running here. Like I said, you have to still secure it, you have to still configure it, but that's more of your personal thing. This is just to get a basic server running. This is not something you would want to put on the internet right away, or even give everyone access to it right away. And again, if you wanted to install OpenSSH on here, you can go ahead and forward the ports, just like I showed you earlier, just using, because it's below 1024 for SSH, usually uses port 22. You want to use something on the host that's a higher number, probably like 2222 or something, and forward it to port 22 on this virtual machine, so you have SSH access that way. Now, hopefully this has helped you out, because with a basic LAMP server here, you can do a lot of things. Like I said, you can do a Ampache server to stream your own music. You can do an Opencloud server. You can do a lot of things. And using this tutorial as a basic how-to, I'll build on this to show you how to build other types of servers. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment if you liked it or anything I might have left out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.